Welcome to the Postpartum Coach podcast, where we embrace our needs as moms, we learn to lead ourselves first, then our families, and where we create our own healing from the inside out to find our way to the work we were meant to do in this world. I'm your host, a fellow mom of 3 and a certified life coach, Lizzie Langston. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 76, the 3 Ps of your lower brain. Again, my goal here on the podcast is to really help you understand postpartum anxiety and make the way out of it very, very clear. So, that being said, you might want support along the way. That is what my coaching is for. So if you want that, I'm here for you. It's always just LizzieLangston.com/consult. Also, can I just tell you, you guys loved the last episode that I did. By the time this episode drops, it will be 2 episodes ago, but anxiety snacking. So if you haven't heard it, apparently it's very popular. You can go check it out. I kind of knew that it would be because the idea that I put in there was genius. And I'm so grateful to my clients because I just get to my brain just gets to play. And do mental gymnastics and just create all these cool new concepts as I help them and coach them. And they get to be the first ones often to hear these concepts in real time on client calls. So lucky you guys. Also, I just love bringing so much of my stuff here. I love it. I love sharing it with you guys. And I'm so grateful, and I would be so grateful for a share in any way you want to, whether that means a review or sharing it on social media or just telling a friend about it. I'm all good with any of it. But I just would be so grateful. And thank you so much for being here. Okay. So we're going to teach you, there's someone with me here, just me and my notebook and my pen. We're going to teach today. We're going to learn together about why you feel stuck in your postpartum anxiety. Why all of a sudden anxiety feels like it's everywhere, and why it feels so hard to get away from and get out of, why you're struggling to manage it. You have 2 parts of your brain. The higher brain, which is the part of you that's trying to figure out this whole situation. It's trying to get help. It's thinking about the possibility of sometime in the future not dealing with as much anxiety. Maybe you're setting some goals about how much weight you want to lose, at this many months into postpartum. That's the higher brain. The higher brain has the ability to envision a future, to plan. It has the ability to be productive and all of that. And then the lower brain is way different. The lower brain is our less evolved brain. And I say that with all the love. We need both parts of our brain. The lower brain is very focused on keeping us safe. The problem becomes that with over just 1,000 years, our environment as a human species changed drastically. Enter the Industrial Revolution. We went from the woods and hunter-gathering, which was gradually fading out anyway, but then once we started building buildings, having jobs, working in factories, creating things in mass quantities, and having massive working situations where we're sitting at our desks, we're not doing our whole hunter-gatherer and tribal way of life, this lower brain piece of us is really outdated in the sense that it's very geared for a world where things are genuinely dangerous. Now, there is danger in our world. It just looks different today. So danger used to be getting eaten by a bear, and now danger is driving, 75 miles an hour in a car and making sure your seatbelt is on. Danger used to be, your tribe nixing you and throwing you to the wolves, and now that might look like your boss firing you. But either way, a lot more happens in our brain than in our body, compared to how it used to, where we used to use our body and work in the fields all day. And especially when it comes to how much of technology is available to us. Facebook, for example, I remember when George Floyd passed away earlier this year, it felt like the news station was in my Facebook feed. And I wasn't even watching the news, but the way that social media can amplify how many messages you're seeing and the mental noise and the emotional, therefore, right? Because our thoughts create our feelings, the emotional gymnastics that we're all doing can be a lot. And so coaching is where the higher brain is being trained to manage the lower brain that is in an environment that it was not necessarily, I wouldn't say it's not created to be here. I don't claim to know the will and mind of God, but in an environment that it hasn't caught up to. Okay. So that's why we need an extra thing like coaching, especially when it comes to anxiety. I want to get very clear as I teach you about this lower brain. It's really important for us to understand so that we can get a hold of our anxiety and have a foot on managing it, like a leg up, whatever that saying is, a foot up, whatever. It's important for us to understand, since we live with this lower brain all of the time, what it values. And what I want to offer is that your lower brain actually values anxiety. Okay? What we call anxiety. Our lower brain, if it could speak, would probably call it hyperprotection mode. You should be so grateful. I'm glad I'm here. Hello, everyone. I'm so good at protecting you. We call it, our higher brain and our more evolved self calls it anxiety, and it just feels like such a nuisance. Okay, but it's really not, as long as you, number one, understand the lower brain. It really helps. And then number two, you know how to use your higher brain in order to calm the anxiety and manage the anxiety that your lower brain puts out when it's not necessary. I'll be honest, occasionally, like 10% of the time, I think anxiety could be useful in certain situations, right? If your child runs into the middle of the street, it could be useful. But ultimately, most of the time in today's day and age, the anxiety, what we call anxiety, but the theatrics of the fight, flight, or freeze response that our body creates in response to the lower brain's anxiety is usually just extra burden on us and just so panicky and annoying. So I'm here to help you to understand both why the lower brain does it and how to use your higher brain to manage it. And of course, as you hear any of these things, if you want help, and you want to work with an expert and have it tailored to you, come talk to me, LizzieLangston.com/consult. Okay. All right. So let's talk about why the lower brain actually kind of likes anxiety and thinks it's a great idea. I know you're probably really frustrated with it. And that's why it's even more important for you to learn this, because let me tell you one more thing. I want you to know, and I've learned this time and time again as I've grown my business and set goals and tried to reach them, if your lower brain is not on board, you're not doing the thing, okay? So if your thing that your higher brain wants to do is overcome anxiety, we have to get your lower brain to value getting out of anxiety and to stop doing anxiety, or else it won't. And there's a careful art to that. I call it coaching. It's the art of coaching the lower brain out of its programming and getting it on board with what the higher brain wants. That's literally what coaching is, always. It's like every session, all the time. And I have a few cool little tricks with your body and stuff, but that's essentially the definition of coaching as I would describe it. And so that's why it's important for you to understand the lower brain, okay? Then we'll talk about how to get out of it. So, it's all to that end. Okay, number one, there's 3 P's I like to say. There's 3 P's of the lower brain. Protection is the first P. The second one is problem solving, which I gotta be honest, that might be a higher brain activity too, or maybe that's what the higher brain does, but we're gonna use it because it works really well with what I'm saying, and I think it is part of it. And number 3 is path of least resistance. Okay, so number 1, protection. Why does the lower brain value anxiety? Because it gives the illusion of protection. It gives an illusion of protection. Our body goes into fight or flight or freeze. That's what you've been feeling, right? Like all of the theatrics. Maybe your arms get tingly. Maybe your heart rate goes way up. Whatever it is, there's so many things. Maybe you get sweaty. Maybe your stomach gets nauseous. Maybe you get diarrhea. I've heard all the things. I've experienced a lot of them. It's crazy, but it's real, right? So our body goes into fight, flight, or freeze mode, and this response in the body, it feels like protection is happening. Even though we're just thinking thoughts and experiencing this in our body, it feels like protection. And if there really was danger outside of us, it would be protection. Problem is, sometimes our body does this with our thoughts in our brain, with our new environment that it's in, right? Thousands of years later, and we don't actually need it. And so it just becomes like, what's happening here? The second P, right? Problem solving. And the second reason that our lower brain values anxiety, even though we don't as our higher brain, higher self, is because it feels like problem solving. Check this out. Follow me here, okay? So problem solving is like, what if we can't sleep tonight? It feels like problem solving. It's the illusion of problem solving, but we're not actually solving a problem. Because the actual problem that we need to solve is why our brain thinks that it can control the future and why our brain thinks that it's useful to freak out about stuff that hasn't happened yet. But regardless, that's what the lower brain just does. It feels like problem solving to the lower brain. And it's important for us, kind of like we're like married to the lower brain. So it's worth our while to understand it. I will just say that, yeah, it would be nice if we could understand why the lower brain does these things. But ultimately, whether we know why or not, we can't change it. It's the brain's programming. But what we can change is how we respond to our lower brain. AKA, in this circumstance, how we respond to anxiety. And that actually is the solution. The solution to anxiety is learning to respond to it in a way that calms your body instead of amps it up even further. And in a way that redirects your mind instead of goes down the crazy train of the what if thoughts and all of the scary thoughts that feel so important when you're in the anxiety. So the ultimate solution is to know when you're in it and step out of the virtual reality and just see it happening in your mind and body. Then you calm your body and then you slow your mind and redirect it. All of that is what I teach my clients. It's the funnest. It's the funnest work ever. I love that I get to do it. I love to watch them be like, oh, yep, there it is again. I love to watch them learn how to calm their bodies. And, it doesn't always happen right away. It takes some time and some practice. And it's so fun when they finally, on their own, usually, almost always it happens. Actually, always. It's like in between sessions on their own. They have a real life moment and they use the tools we've been learning in the sessions and they calm their own body. I want you to imagine that for yourself, you guys. You right now, mama. Like, I want you to imagine being able to have stability emotionally, mentally, and to calm your body when anxiety is present and totally have it not be a big deal. Like going from here's anxiety and now it's escalating to a panic attack to here's anxiety and now I'm calm. Just ask my clients. Like, I could literally name names. I'm just thinking of a few of you just this week who are like, oh my gosh, I think this is a big win. Like, I calmed my body. I felt the anxiety and it wanted to take me down the crazy train. And I just went into my body and calmed it. Oh, it's so brilliant. I'm so proud of you guys. And I would love to teach anybody who wants to learn how to do that with their own anxiety, how to do that. When you take on this work, when you step into the work of managing anxiety, you, number one, like I said, need to understand the lower brain, but you also have to do something else. You have to really, really value peace and calm. You might think you do. We might think we value peace and calm, but I think sometimes anxiety is like a cover for not wanting to feel peace and calm in our life. Because if you felt peace and calm, you'd also have to feel maybe a lot of other emotions like sadness or shame or anger. If you were actually calming down and being peaceful and calm, you'd have to deal with stuff that you maybe haven't been dealing with, okay? So anxiety is something that happens when we're not dealing with the stuff over either years, decades, or even just a few days or weeks postpartum. When stuff comes up and we're not even aware of it, or if we are aware of it, we're kind of stuffing it under the rug, that's when we're susceptible to high levels of anxiety. And there's a strategy there, right? It's like we might rather feel anxious than deal with all the stuff that we got to deal with. So that we got to be honest with ourselves. Like, when you want to work with me, you got to be ready to deal with the stuff. The good news is I'm here to help you. And the other good news is your anxiety will calm way down and you will feel so much better as you release the stuff. Okay, so we have to, yes, understand the lower brain, but we have to be sold on being calm and having peace. We have to really value playfulness. We have to value letting go of our current self-concept, which says that we're high-strung or that we're disorganized or that we're all the things that keep us in this identity of somebody with anxiety. Are you willing to let go of the very familiar identity you might have built up, even if it's just been a couple weeks or months with postpartum, right? Are you willing to let go of that? Maybe you're like, yes, sign me up. I want coaching so bad, and that's fine. Good. LizzieLangston.com/consult. But no matter where you are, right, it's a very come to Jesus kind of a moment with yourself where you have to be like, do I really want to be calm? I was talking to one of my clients today, and she's really starting to transition into the person that doesn't use anxiety or like need it or want it or even have it anymore. So yes, we've worked on managing it, but what we've really been doing is selling her on a new lifestyle of not getting all the things done and of resting and letting go of expectations and releasing herself of gender roles that she feels like have been put on her. And many of us, we just like take on the gender roles. We say, yes, husband, I will just cook and clean because that's what you expect me to do. And we stop listening to our bodies. We stop taking into consideration our own desires, our limits of how much we can and cannot do. We stop asking for help. Yeah. And then we get anxious and we get depressed for sure. So my coaching will help you. And what I do on the consult is I start to help your lower brain be sold. That's essentially what I do on the consult is I really help you get yourself sold on this work so that you can do it and get the results, right? So the first way we know that you can do it and get the results is when you say yes and you pay the money and you invest in yourself. That right there is like over 50% of the entire transformation is just recognizing where you are, wanting something else, and saying yes and paying the money. Once you are in the doors and you are the client and you have this dedicated time and space and you have my brain to help you understand yours, it's just a matter of time. It's in the bag, man. It's like in the bag. It's just getting on the consult and then saying yes. So if you are interested in doing those two things so that you can continue building off of this episode onto the consult, into the client sessions, continue to sell your brain on peace and to help your lower brain get on board with that so you can give up anxiety, give me a call. Actually, I'll be giving you a call, but you sign up for me to call you via my consult booking link at LizzieLangston.com/consult. That's LIZZIELAN as in Nancy, what's my last name? LANGSTON as in Nancy again. So LizzieLangston.com/consult. All right, talk to you soon. Bye. Hey, Lizzie here. I've helped dozens of postpartum moms just like you to manage their postpartum anxiety and deconstruct their postpartum depression. It's really easy for me. So if you're ready to feel better, I know the way. Let's chat on the phone. Set up a time by going to LizzieLangston.com/consult. It's pretty simple, and I will be calling you soon.